Welcome once again to the Talk Across America, a look at issues of interest and trending talk. Tonight we take a look at copyright infringement and the slippery slope that it continues to be for innocent individuals, families, and nonprofit organizations. One of the individuals embroiled in a national controversy over copyright infringement is April Brown, one of America's leading female auctioneers. She is the CEO of Charity Auction World, which has raised millions of dollars for numerous organizations all over the country for the past 21 years. She is also the founder and the director of Whisker City. It's a nonprofit, no kill feline shelter up in the Pacific Northwest. In addition, April Brown is a passionate nonprofit activist fighting for the rights of individuals and organizations wrongly taken advantage of in the nonprofit community. She will join us tonight from Seattle. April Brown is making news all across the country because of a poem that she posted on her website called The Dash, written by an author named Linda Ellis. Now, you can view Linda's poem on YouTube by searching for Linda Ellis, The Dash. Look, but don't share. April not only gave full credit for the poem when she first posted it, she encouraged people to go to Linda's site where the poem, the book under the same title, and other promotional items are available for sale. Now, she did this as a professional courtesy, believing that others would enjoy this writer's work. She certainly got nothing out of it. For that, she was threatened with legal action, a serious financial demand, and an offer to settle quickly for a lesser amount. She refused and she sought legal counsel, and in the process, she shared her story, her battle, in a very public blog on her website, www.charityauctionworld.com. When you go to the website, click on the link Beware Copyright Trolls. To her surprise, she was inundated with email from numerous individuals, churches, synagogues, and nonprofit organizations all around the country who felt that they were being bullied into paying Miss Ellis amounts of up to $7,500 and more for innocently sharing her work. Linda Ellis has apparently turned her poem into a cottage industry, actively searching for innocent infringers and then making frightening financial demands. There were grieving families involved who included the poem as part of a memorial service, on websites dedicated to dying children, even in church newsletters, and on and on. April Brown believes there is an active pursuit of people who use this poem unknowingly and innocently. She refers to this as copyright trolling, which we will learn more about tonight. If you have ever seen something online that you thought was wonderful or cute or timely or touching, and you thought about sharing it, think again. Regardless of giving credit to the author, don't share. Even if the author is listed as anonymous or author unknown, doesn't make much difference. April Brown has launched a national campaign called Beware, Don't Share. April, welcome to the Talk Across America.
Well, thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate it.
This is a frightening scenario for thousands of unsuspecting individuals and organizations. It must have been quite a shock to you when this happened.
Well, when it first happened, I was very shocked. I got a letter, an email letter from John Jolin. He said he was the copyright representative for Linda Ellis, author of the Dash poem, and it kind of reminded me of the Nigerian banking scandal. The letter wasn't very well written, so I really just ignored it. After getting a couple of those letters about a month apart, I tried to contact the author and didn't hear back from her. Tried to investigate to find out if this was a real person. Really could find nothing about this fellow online anywhere. And so I decided to put out a press release just to see if this was a legitimate issue.
Did you take the poem down off your website?
Did it immediately, took it down. First thing I did was take down the poem. Thank you. I certainly did do that. After that, I still kept getting the letters. In fact, what I did was I wrote back to one of the letters and said I took the poem down, basically what's the big deal? And that created sort of a settlement situation where this fellow was demanding me that I settle with him. And if I didn't settle, they were going to take me to federal court. And in federal court, the fines could be as high as $150,000 if I lost. And
Wow.
so it's pretty threatening. Pretty threatening. I mean, I really couldn't find too much on this subject. I did not find and still have not found another author that is doing this, what we call copyright trolling. And
Mm.
this is where an author of anything, any intellectual property, from photographs, videos, or whatever, they just put a few keywords of whatever their property is, or there's even software for images and video, search out the content when they find the content, and they begin this barrage of threatening letters. But what I did was I just put out this press release, and that flushed out the author. And the author began what is now, since October, a long-time harassment campaign, threatening letters. I put up a lot of material on this blog that I created for innocent infringers. As a result, this has made her very upset, because that's kind of one of the keys to this, why it's so successful for these authors to collect, is that nobody talks about it. Everybody's afraid. But one of the mistakes this particular company has done, or I think it's a mistake, is they require that everybody puts up a letter stating that they use the poem without permission. And as a result, it's pretty easy to find victims, because you just search, use the same techniques they do, and search the internet. And now I found scores and scores of victims of copyright trolling. And this particular author is the only one that I've ever heard of who does this to bloggers. Now, maybe there's others, but this is the only one I found.
Nonprofit activist April Brown is joining us tonight on the Talk Across America. April, you are being accused of stealing the poem The Dash. Did you steal Linda Ellis's poem?
Well, this is what's interesting. I get poems sent to me all the time, pictures sent to me all the time. And they're always about sharing them. You know, share this with 10 of your friends and send it back to me, kind of like a chain letter. So I call it sharing. For some reason, this author believes that this is stealing when you share her poem without her permission. And I mean sharing it with anybody without her permission. So she calls that stealing. And of course, I don't. I shared the poem. That's all I did, is I shared the poem.
Any idea, April, how many people have innocently reposted this poem?
Well, you know, it's on millions and millions of websites. If you search The Dash right now, you can find it on millions of websites. It's everywhere. It was written a long time ago. Linda Ellis was the first to share it. She even speaks about sharing it on a radio program. She read it aloud, and it caught on like wildfire. And she herself has shared it for 4 years before it was ever copyrighted. So in my opinion, she needs to sue herself, because she was the first one to ever share the program without charging anybody anything.
Is this a form of entrapment?
I feel it is, and there's a lot of people who believe it. We've now gathered quite a few people in our circle of support, and most people feel as though this is just a money-making scheme. You know, come up with a piece of intellectual property. In fact, if you can find any intellectual property that's been shared and not copyrighted, and you hurriedly go get it copyrighted, you can then go after people for sharing that copyrighted material. So it doesn't matter when it was shared. If it was shared before the copyright, and then the property gets copyrighted, you still can be attacked by these copyright trolls.
April Brown is joining us tonight on the Talk Across America. She is the CEO of Charity Auction World. She has been in the nonprofit community for well over 21 years and now is a nonprofit activist. Tonight we are talking about copyright infringement and the poem The Dash. April, how does Linda Ellis find out so quickly that her work is being published elsewhere?
Well, there's actually software. It's called trolling software. There's software for text, video, and photos. And anybody can, you don't really need software to find this poem, but that's what a copyright troll typically does, is they use a particular software for whatever medium they're searching. And then it just is working all the time, and it sends back IP addresses and email addresses. And then the troll begins sending their letters. And by the way, this particular troll is not using an attorney. This is just an amateurish letter that she sends repeatedly filled with these threats. Now, in my case, I'm one of the few people that's ever interacted with her one-to-one. Typically, she works through somebody named John W. Jolin. But this is that she's actually taken me on head-to-head, I guess you could say, but that's very unusual. That's usually not the case.
And apparently, Linda Ellis has used some aggressive tactics, including purchasing Google ads to attack your business.
Well, this is what I think so fascinating about this particular author. This is an inspirational author, right? God-fearing inspirational author. Her book, her poem anyway, can be found in like posters and on coffee cups in Christian bookstores, right? But her approach with me has been extremely aggressive. She took out Google ads using my name for the search. So when you searched April Brown, this Google ad would pop up, and then when you click on it, it would go to her website, and she would change this page on a fairly regular basis and still does. And it's pretty much just defaming me, calling me a liar, just weird. It's kind of weird stuff, actually. I've never heard of anyone doing anything like this, but she did that 3 separate times. By the way, I have screen captures of that, and if anyone questions whether or not this is a legitimate story, they just can go to my website, aprilbrown.com, and look at copyright trolls. I have posted everything that's gone down since this started in October.
You indicated in your blog that she has harassed even your husband's employer. Isn't that going way over the line? I mean, debt collectors can't even do that.
Well, this is funny you mentioned debt collectors, because we have a number of people who write all the time who say, this is worse than a debt collector. And you make a good point there. This woman actually wrote a letter to my husband's place of employment. Now, he happens to work for a CBS affiliate, although he's a sports broadcaster, which must be lost on her. She sent a letter asking basically for equal time on his show or on the station on the subject of copyright infringement, thinking, I guess, that I was going to be doing a show there. I don't know. That was the first letter. Then the second letter she actually wrote to the corporation that he works for and reported him for an ethics violation.
It is the talk across America. And tonight we are visiting with April Brown. April is the CEO of Charity Auction World, which raises money for nonprofit organizations all across the country. She is a passionate nonprofit activist fighting for the rights of individuals and organizations wrongly taken advantage of in the nonprofit community. She published a poem some time back called The Dash by Linda Ellis, gave Linda Ellis full credit, encouraged people to go to Linda Ellis's website, to view the poem, to purchase perhaps her book and other promotional items. Yet what happened was Linda Ellis turned around and accused April Brown of stealing the poem and demanded money. When the demand was made, they offered to settle for a little less money, but nonetheless, they wanted a financial settlement.
Yes, so it started out with that first threatening letter that was, basically not really clear on how much they wanted, but they were hovering around the $7,500 mark. And I think the final offer that they wanted to settle for was for $2,500. So I don't know how much you would pay to read a poem or share a poem, but more than $3.50. And in fact, if I knew it was going to cost me $3.50, I wouldn't share the poem. In fact, I don't know of any literature right now that I would share with anyone for $7,500.
There are people, I'm sure, who are paying her money. Why?
Well, this has been the frightening thing, and this is why I decided to go public. I don't want to paint an entire arena of God-fearing people as cowards, but I have to say, the nonprofit world and the religious community, people are really worried about what people think. And there's a hierarchy in all nonprofits and in all religious organizations. And it'll start with the person who did the posting, then it'll end up being discussed with the board of directors, and then maybe an attorney. And if they find out you have insurance, which most nonprofits have insurance, and most religious organizations have insurance, once they find out you have insurance, then the numbers go way up. And they're very relentless once they find out you have insurance. And also, straight across the board, any attorney working for these companies will tell people to settle, because they claim if you go to court, it's going to cost, as much as $30,000 to go to federal court. So everybody just freaks out and goes along with it. and pay something. And the typical settlement so far that I've gotten from everybody that has contacted me has been around $2,500.
So you have actually talked to a number of other victims of this alleged scam.
Yes, the reason you're not hearing from them is because as part of the settlement, they agree to a confidentiality agreement. And if they break the
Wow.
confidentiality agreement, then they're in all kinds of trouble. So what they do is send me their legal papers redacted, and then they've sent me their emails, and I just disguise their names when I'm talking about them because they're very mad. I mean, you can imagine I haven't paid a dime, and the people that have now gotten involved with communicating with me are stopped communicating with her. So they're not paying any money either. So you can imagine how foolish the people that already have paid feel right now. So they're very angry and they want to fight back, and they're fighting back by just giving me their information to share with everyone.
April Brown is joining us tonight on The Talk Across America. April is a passionate nonprofit activist fighting for the rights of individuals and organizations wrongly taken advantage of in the nonprofit community. She claims to be an innocent infringer. She innocently posted a poem on her website, encouraged people to go to the source, gave the author's website, and yet the author turned around and has threatened legal action. Now, April, you put together several videos on copyright trolling, which were posted on YouTube. Linda Ellis apparently filed a complaint with YouTube. The videos were then removed. Why?
Well, now, another thing, this is, now, I had never heard of any of this stuff ever until I met this woman, Linda Ellis. So what you can do apparently fairly easy is just file a copyright strike on any video, legitimate or not, and YouTube just takes it down and they just block it and it's over and you can't show it. So just to give you an idea what the interest is, I made a video in 4 days. It had 11,000 hits.
Wow.
So she did a copyright strike. Within 24 hours, I had a new video up. Within 5 days, it had over 40,000 hits. She did another copyright strike. And if she does one more copyright, and I put up another video, and if she does one more copyright strike, my YouTube channel can actually be shut down. Now, I can and have filed to get it reinstated. But in the meantime, I realized just how sensitive this subject is to internet service providers of all kinds. None of them like this. What I understand from YouTube, the reason that they are going in this direction of just taking them down is that the general population will get very mad, help YouTube fight back on copyright trolling because they hate it too.
April Brown joining us tonight. She is an activist in the nonprofit community. And we're talking about copyright infringement. April, any idea how many people have been targeted and how successful Miss Ellis has been in collecting damages? How many court suits have there been?
There have been no lawsuits on this subject ever filed by Linda Ellis. Not
Really?
one. There's been one that she refers to, but this is a completely different case. It was a guy that was essentially a thug. She had come to an agreement on a copyright fee with him. He refused to pay it, went ahead and published the work, and she did win that case, but it just turns out that that guy was a little bit more wicked than she, and she never paid, and he actually did some other things and ended up in jail. So it was kind of a thug of a guy. But the rest of the people, no one else like me has ever been tested. This has never been tested in court. There's just literally not one single case. Now, her words to me, which you can view yourself in these emails I have posted, is that she said to me that she's collected in 99.9% of the cases, and why don't I just pay up?
Wow.
Now, you think of that. That's from an email letter. I want you to know something that's really important here that people need to understand. This is all being done via email. There's no registered letter coming in the mail. There's no attorney handling any of it. This is just a little living room operation she has in her home, and she just keeps sending out these letters and plays the numbers game and see who hits. I turned out to be sort of the wrong target because, one, I'm not grieving, and I run my own nonprofit, so there's nobody really going to go tell me to pay her,
Hmm.
So, and I'm not vulnerable in any way whatsoever. So I'm not the classic victim of the Dash poem or Linda Ellis. The classic victim is someone who is a little bit off balance. Nonprofits are typically underfunded, so they're really worried about money. People in grief are in grief.
Sure.
They're in grief. So obviously they don't know what to do. So a lot of people just pay. And I do understand there's some people have told me they've got away with paying her just $250 too.
But certainly, if you take hundreds, maybe even thousands of people who are paying her $250 each, that's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. And what's really sad about this is that in the case of the Dash poem, that went viral. It was out before the internet, so then the internet comes along, and she allowed this poem to be spread like crazy. She spread it herself like crazy. And now that it's everywhere and there's this, they call it a loophole, but there's really no loophole in the copyright law. The copyright law was not meant for this situation.
Mm.
It was not meant for a grandma sending her daughter a poem or for someone putting a poem in a funeral commemorative. Or the copyright law wasn't about that. It was about overall theft of work.
Is there such a thing as innocent infringement?
This is what we are. I'm an innocent infringer. I posted the poem under what they call fair use. And fair use is just a simple sharing of a product or an idea without making money on it. Now, I want to tell you her side of this because I've heard this over and over and over. Her side of it is the fact that I had a business website and I put her poem on my blog. She believes that my business was enhanced and made profits because I shared that stupid poem. She believes that. Her ego is at such a place, you can't even comprehend the way this woman talks about her work and her poem. She believes that this poem is the most amazing collection of words on the planet, and it's worth $7,500. She believes that. So she believes that even though I've been in business for 22 years, the poem's up for just a few days, and in her own words, she called my blog a granny blog. She told me that with her own words. So clearly, it wasn't a very exciting blog at the time. But she believes that people actually hired me because I put the Dash poem on a blog.
Have you spoken with Linda Ellis?
Not by phone. No, I never have. I've never spoken to her. No, I don't really want to. This is not someone I have anything in common with. I cannot relate at all to where she's coming from. At anything she's ever written me, it's always over the top, exaggerated, self-important, a lot of sanctimonious stuff.
It seems like she is winning a lot, collecting a lot of money as a result of intimidation.
Well, yes, she does. But then now that I've communicated with her and stuff, it's a very unsophisticated operation. I even wonder if there's a real John Jolin. I honestly feel this just is a little living room operation, and a lot of this stuff is just made up, because the materials that I get and have gotten from her are just poorly written. And it's not something I think any attorney would ever put out. So she's doing this without any legal standing, without any legal authority. She's actually telling you what something is worth, demanding that you pay it, and then collecting the money. So she's basically doing everything herself.
Which is technically not illegal. So if people are dumb enough to give her money, she wins.
She does. I agree. If people are that crazy and they want to, if they're going to be that afraid and they're going to fall for it, fine. But honestly, I think the only reason people are paying is that it's in the closet. There's no light being shed on it. Once this light continues to be shed on the concept, I don't think people are going to pay anymore. They're going to fight back. We have a lot of people fighting back. Just to give you an idea on that whole YouTube takedown, before that she ever got that taken down, that had already been grabbed and posted in other countries on other web pages. So that information is going to be there forever. My blogs, these guys, a lot of techies out there have grabbed all those posts. They're posting this stuff everywhere. And their goal is my goal, is, beware, do not share, and certainly do not share the Dash poem by Linda Ellis. That is a big, big mistake if you do.
April Brown is joining us tonight on the Talk Across America. She is the CEO of Charity Auction World. She is also a passionate nonprofit activist fighting for the rights of individuals and organizations that are wrongly taken advantage of in the nonprofit community. Let me ask you a question, April. What happens if someone is contacted by Linda Ellis and they simply ignore the claim, ignore the demand?
This is the trick. So here's what happens. Here's what you need to do. If you ever hear from a copyright troll, don't respond and report the email as spam or block it. But do not respond. Never respond. Once you respond, they'll take that sentence and say you've admitted to posting this author's work unauthorized. So that's number one. Then let's say you did respond. Stop responding. Just stop responding. What they typically do is they go away because honestly, there's no attorney involved here. So these people just go away and go to fresh meat. The weaker of the species is what they go after. And the only reason I'm still involved, if I'd have done that, it'd been over. But I actually thought I was dealing with a hoax. And then when I finally realized it wasn't a hoax, I'm thinking, this cannot be for real. And sure enough, I'm now involved in a situation where there's no way to pull out. There's too many people organized now, and it's more of a movement to fight back this unjust way of using the copyright law to really victimize people.
In the few moments that we have left, April, what advice do you have for people who find something online? Perhaps it's on Facebook or maybe on a website, or maybe they get one of these mass emails that people are encouraged to forward, and they want to share it with someone else. What advice do you have?
Well, I never have forwarded emails, so just make that your first rule. Never forward any emails. Try to be inspirational yourself. Post your own original words. Just post your own original words. Or maybe you do want to share someone's content. If it says author unknown, probably you don't want to share it because it probably is an author that is known. And if you really feel strongly about a known work, write the author and ask. And my guess is that nobody in the sound of my voice will ever pay a copyright fee for sharing anything, because that's not what you share for. You share because you were moved or you cared. But today on the internet, it's not like handing your neighbor the poem. It's by my sharing that poem for just those 3 days, I probably victimized somebody else. And let you know, a client sent me that poem. So, I can never say to my client, you know what you did? Because that's what they did. They did something really sweet that turned out to be a big curse.
It is something that we could all be a victim of. Copyright infringement, innocent or otherwise. It is something to be taken seriously. And the talk across America tonight is beware and don't share. Thank you, April, for sharing your campaign to prevent innocent individuals and organizations from getting caught in the quagmire of copyright infringement. And to find out more about this story and how it eventually plays out, and to read the full email exchange, which is pretty intriguing, between April Brown and Linda Ellis, we invite you to visit charityauctionworld.com. That's www.charityauctionworld.com, and click on the Beware Copyright Trolls link. And join us next time when we'll look at the difference in gas prices in different parts of the country and who's behind the disparity in the pricing. It's all on The Talk Across America. Thanks for joining us. Us.